Cheers, guys. Epix911, welcome to the Elitist Geek. VR news for August 5th, second to last day in New York City, in the Midtown area, near the United Nations building. So we are loving it out here, wife and I. A couple of viewers, Tundi, if I'm pronouncing that correct, and even if I'm not, you're now Tundi, and Barnett both asked or mentioned the VR experience in Times Square in Madame Tussauds Museum, which is the world famous wax museum. They have a Ghostbusters VR experience there. And where to begin? Well, let's start with the experience that is Times Square. Holy crap, a lot of people. Vancouver can get busy. We had the 2010 Winter Olympics, and it was probably order of magnitude about the same, but holy hell, that's a lot of people. And I don't do good with a lot of people around, like huge crowds. I'm good for a couple of hours, but then the introvert in me starts looking for fresh air and solitude. So other than that, the actual museum portion wasn't bad at all. It's hella expensive. So let's get that out of the way up front. This is a high-end room VR experience, okay? It clocks in at about 12 minutes, roughly. You're not allowed to take any pictures or film anything. I tried, trust me. I tried and had a big bouncer tell me not to do that. And I wasn't going to argue with the guy. Wasn't going to argue with him, and I don't think you would have argued with him either. Now, so it's $50. It's about 12 minutes, and that's US, so you're paying about $4 US a minute. Now, this is, like I said, it's not Rift, it's not Vive, it's a commercial unit, and it uses definitely an advanced form of room VR. So they have an actual stage with props and space. You put on a haptic feedback bodysuit, okay? And this thing, feels like a pretty heavy backpack, which is the cool part. It's the wireless that we all want, but don't necessarily want to wear, a bodysuit and a backpack to experience. So there's that. 10 to 12 minutes, though, wasn't bad at all. Definitely manageable. Graphic-wise, I would put it up there with the AAA stuff that you're getting from the Rift and the Vive. I wouldn't put it past that. The Room VR, however, the tracking was spot on. So you have this bodysuit, it uses vibration, kind of haptic feedback. You've got a big gun and the HMD on. And I sweat like a mofo. This was not an exception to that rule. Let's just say 12 minutes was probably the peak time for me anyways. I would have been drenched if it had gone on another 10, 15 minutes. Now, was it worth it? Yeah, to experience once. It's not something I would do weekly or monthly. That's the reason why we bought our own VR units, right? To kind of recoup that per hour cost. But with that said, anybody who has not experienced Room VR yet, fantastic, because it shows you what it's capable of, right? So if you're on the fence about it, if you are on the fence on it at all, give this a shot. Realism, spot on. You've got voice communication with the people that you're in there with. But yeah, it's hella expensive, but it is an awesome experience, and I am glad I did it. On to the news. So, HTC has announced a new virtual reality content store. It's called Viveport. It'll launch in the fall or autumn, wherever you happen to be from. And unlike the existing, Steam VR on Valve, versus via Steam, this is not going to be game-centric. It's basically everything other than games. VR movies, just all kinds of VR content, documentaries, training, whatever you can think up that isn't game-related, that's what they hope to be stocking. So definitely looking forward to that, because to me, VR is not just about gaming. That's the primary reason, but I'm into all the other experiences. The more experiences, the better, in my opinion. So can't wait to test that out and see what is available. So as we get closer to that, and I have a better idea of what they're offering, I will let you guys know. The next experience, it's not one that I experienced. I've been contemplating it, but I just can't get myself to do it. And unlike the $4 US, the Everest VR experience is about the same length of time, okay, a bit longer. It's 25 minutes from what I've been able to tell. So you're paying about $1 a minute instead of $4 a minute. But it's over very quick. Is that a good deal? Is that, like, I still struggle with that. I know there's quite a few of you who've let me know that, hey, come on, Epics, you know, the devs have to charge this because there's just not a huge market for it. And I get that. And that's a valid point. It absolutely is a valid point. It just doesn't make it any easier a pill to swallow when you purchase something for $22 and after the 25 minutes, there's no replay value. And I think that's the single biggest faux pas or issue that I have with Everest. Everything I have read is it's a once and done experience. Granted, you can let family members and friends try after that. It's a great, all the reviews keep saying the same thing. It's great to let other people experience VR, that first VR experience. And it definitely looks like it's that. But is it something that's going to give you replay value in the way that even the shortest wave game is going to offer you? No. So it becomes a very personal decision on what the value is to you, right? And I'm always want to encourage supporting devs. So hell, if you do it for that reason alone and you're okay with, you know, the 20-25 minutes, then fine. You know, you've in a sense made a donation to that company and allowed them to pocket some revenue. And I respect that, but I got to be honest, I struggle with it for a lot of the stuff that's out there because a lot of it isn't very good, right? And I'm not saying Everest isn't good. It is. It's good for what it does, but it doesn't do a lot. It switches pacing. That was another common complaint from a walking simulator to a climbing to exploring. The narration isn't that good, and I have heard the narration. I've watched YouTube video on it. Yeah, and it didn't sound too good. Put it this way, I haven't seen anything or read anything that's enticed me to want to buy it. So for now, I'm holding off. If it gets really cheap for the holiday Steam sale, I will definitely consider buying it. But right now, I've got a list of stuff that's so freaking long with stuff that a lot of you guys say is so awesome. I want to get to that first. And buying this game when I'm realistically probably not going to be able to experience it, even at only 25 minutes, it's just not realistic. It's not going to happen. So for now, I'm holding off. But if any of you have tried it, let me know in the comments below. Am I far off with what I've said? Have I lost my mind? Let me know. I will always consider something when more factual evidence comes to light, right? Even if it's secondhand accounts from you guys, I will consider that. So let me know. The OSVR, true to its original promise, that requires a sip of beer. True to its original promise that OSVR will remain open source and modular, they have released for 1.3 and 1.4 purchasers an upgrade path. So for $220, you get an instruction on how to do the upgrade and the hardware to do it with. So essentially you're opening up your HMD to transplant the new screen with a new adapter into your HMD to essentially upgrade it to the new resolution and the slightly larger field of view that the new model offers. That's pretty cool. $220, it still beats buying a new unit. My only concern would be there is likely not much of a return policy if you foobar this up. And anytime you're working with ribbon connections, I don't know if any of you have worked with ribbon connections before. I have on the first or second gen PlayStation Portable. They were notoriously horribly located. And with very little movement or pressure, you could basically destroy the ribbons and basically ruin your whole PSP. And I have personally done that to a PSP unit. The first one I did the process on, so I did learn from it, but I still wasted a PSP in the process. So be very cautious if that's your thing and you're not somebody who's done that type of thing before, right? You could screw it up and then you're out not just the 220 for the screen, although theoretically you could still use it and buy a used 1.3 or 1.4 unit. But I'd almost say do that in the first place and don't risk it on your only unit if that is the case, right? Because then you might still be cheaper buying it used and doing the upgrade yourself. Now, a question that I have for any of you that have the OSVR is, how have you found the Steam VR compatibility? Because I know it's a plugin that you basically have to run, similar to using kind of Revive if you're a Vive user to play Rift games. Is the compatibility like that? Is it hit and miss? Would you say 90%? Would you say 50-50? Let me know if you are somebody that has that. Really curious on that, because it is a unit that I will likely purchase, as I mentioned in yesterday's video, alongside the Sony VR solution. Now, that Intel tweeted picture, a few of you pointed this out to me, one viewer in particular, and I tried to find the post, but like I said, it's getting really difficult to keep tabs. You'd think they would make it a little easier to find and search for stuff in your own comments, but I haven't found it if it exists. Anyways, the mention was that it had basically been retracted, that tweet, erased. And sure enough, it does not exist anymore. But there's no kind of rebuttal to it officially. So most of it was probably true. But you got to think that, I'm curious, is the guy going to lose his job? It's probably the type of thing he was under NDA, right, for non-disclosure. Hopefully not, because to me it didn't seem like this, bad thing he was doing. It was almost out of pride that, hey, look what we managed to pull off. So I don't think his intention was to, let any kind of top secrets out of the bag. He obviously did in terms of how it looks, but should he lose his job over it? I'm sure there's going to be varying opinions. If he worked for me, probably not, but I'd probably move him into PR and out of engineering, because it may happen again, right? Now, this next and last item I thought is really cool, because for me personally, it brings me full frickin' circle to how I started playing video games in the first place. Now, technically, I started playing video games on those 10-in-1 Pong units, where baseball, hockey, tennis, football, all were basically Pong with bigger balls or smaller or larger paddles. It was the same game, right, with very slight changes. That's technically the first console I played. But the first arcade game was Battlezone, and I've mentioned that in a couple of videos on this channel. It blew me away when I first played it. It started a lifelong, passionate love affair, which sounds hella creepy when you put it that way, with video games, but it did. And anyways, now there will be a VR version of that game. So, of course, I got to get that. And that's going to be one of those purchases where they could almost charge anything, and I'd probably get it just to come full circle on that, to have the game that got me into gaming and the desire for VR to kind of come full circle into one experience. So that was way back in 1980. So 92, holy shit, that's a long time ago. That's 36 years ago. I was a very young kid at the time, but it was awesome. And the original was wireframe. This one is obviously textured polygons, but hopefully it retains the feel of the original. So looking forward to that. Like I said, I'll definitely get it. And with that, guys, cheers, and hope you have an awesome one.